Hello and welcome to Celtic State of Mind. It is Friday, another eventful week at Celtic Football Club. Lots to discuss, both negative and negative, I think is the way that I want to put it. Or we'll try not to be too much that way, but you know, got to go by results on the pitch. I'm joined as always by Tony Haggerty. How you doing, Tony?
I'm very well, Laura, yourself?
Yeah, I don't know if I've got off on the best foot there, but we'll see how it goes. Jim is not with us today, unfortunately, and he's asked me to mention he is not. He's not flaky. He's not unreliable. He's been having some dental issues the last couple of weeks, so he's getting them fixed at the dentist today, and hopefully we'll be back with us next week. Meanwhile, we are joined from Celts Down Under by Jarrod. How you doing, Jarrod?
Yeah, good, Laura. How are you?
Not too bad. A little bit better than you, I would imagine. You were telling us before we came on here you've been up since 5:30 this morning or something to watch the match.
Quarter to 5 for a 5 a.m. kickoff.
and it's 9:30 there now, so long day. We'll try not to keep you.
The joys of being a Celtic fan this side of the world. That's what we all go through. Get up at stupid o'clock, watch the games, and this is actually the better ones when you play the European night games because it's easier.
Oh well, don't shout it too loudly because Tony and I live in and around Glasgow and don't have a season ticket, and we get hard enough time. So I don't know. I don't know what people make of being all the way over the other side of the world, but you're putting the hours in. That's for sure. Yeah,
it is what it is. That's what it's been my whole life. So, you know, no big deal for me. Nothing out of the ordinary.
No, I appreciate the commitment, but we'll move on to the topic at hand, and that is obviously the week that was at Celtic. So we had obviously a defeat to Dundee United last weekend. We had another defeat to Leverkusen last night. Tony, we are now...
We got a draw against Dundee United.
Draw against Dundee United. Oh my goodness, you've saved me there. You've saved me.
Good for the comment.
I know. I'm not looking. But no, we are now. I think it's 4 matches without a win, Tony.
Yeah.
And I have to say, even as a massive backer of Ange, as somebody who has really wanted to see him do well, as I think everybody does, but who has really bought into the philosophy, I myself am finding it hard to defend it as time goes on and as you know, the results aren't coming our way. What have you made of this week so far before we go into the detail about the matches themselves?
Well, you mentioned the start. We've not 1-4. We've won 2 out of our last 8. You know, you can manipulate stats to suit, you know, but last night was particularly disappointing, the result. I don't think many Celtic supporters had much optimism going into the game about getting a result because they proved that they were a really good side. But, you know, they just, at this moment in time, whatever philosophy and whatever strategy Ange has and he's trying to implement, it's not working. I'm sorry, it's not working. And I felt that the Germans did what Celtic should have did in Spain. When it went to 2-0, they managed the game. They had their eye on Bayern Munich after they went 2-0 up, and they played in second gear, and it could have been anything they wanted if they wanted it to be. And if Celtic had scored at any time in the game, I felt they could have just gone through the gears. And that's my thoughts. It's now staring you in the face, and the comments that he made last night that he won't change his approach, for me, I think that's deeply concerning because he has to start to do something. You know, it's not working with Roderick and Turnbull in there. It's not working with it playing it out at the back. The first goal was conceded because David Turnbull had it in his mind to take a touch, pivot, and start to build up from the back instead of just clearing it into the stands and dealing with the clear and present danger that was there at the time. Did neither. Quick ball across the box, it's in your net. And the whole atmosphere changed on that. We spoke before the show. The minute that Joe Hart had the ball, and it seemed an eternity, and his instinct was to shell it long, and he didn't because that's not what he's been taught, and he stood forever until he shelled one out wide. I think it was Adam Montgomery or Jota, and Celtic immediately lost possession. But Joe Hart just wanted to go long, and we got a clear-cut chance through Cameron Carter-Vickers hitting one through the middle, playing a percentage ball to Kyogo, who ran through and had that chance. So you have to adapt. Been saying it since day one. And, I got a text this morning, which I think is quite kind of pertinent. And one of my journalistic friends said to me, he's sick of Ange and his way. Only egomaniacs or extremely limited managers don't embrace pragmatism. I find it hard to argue with that, Laura. I really do. It's not pleasant seeing Celtic lose 4-0 in any match or a European tie. And apathy set in amongst the supporters last night. A lot of them were leaving 65, 70 minutes. Because I spoke to my father, and he said for one of the few times watching Celtic, he got bored and he left 10 minutes from the end. Father's never done that in his life. That tells me a lot about the current, present situation and the feeling among supporters. And you can be accused of being negative. You're reacting to what you're seeing on the park.
Yeah, it's a strange one, and thanks to everybody for watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching us. Caravan on Twitch has said it just seems that Ange's philosophy, that it is Ange's philosophy, and he won't change it because he doesn't want to steer off his course. He really believes in that way of playing football, even though it's not working just now. And I do think that sums it up. He has such a strong belief, but as I was having a discussion with a friend last night, there's a difference between having a belief in a system because you think it will work eventually and having a belief in a system because you're too stubborn to change it. And I don't know which side of the fence he falls into. Jarrod, it's great to have you on the show, obviously, but not least because you can give us a bit of context on Postecoglou. I remember you and others saying back when he joined us to expect a bumpy ride in the first season, to expect, I think the phrase "a few bloody noses" has been used a number of times by contributors. Are things going the way that you would have expected them to go getting Ange in first season, or are they slightly worse than you would have expected them to be?
It's tough on the answer because I've been watching Ange's teams playing since about 98. I think was the first time I went and watched him when he was managing South Melbourne. And his first season, it was let go of a bunch of senior guys, get them in, they build it up, and off they go. And then he built the program over 2 transfer windows. Second year in that chair, he won the title. Same thing happened when he took over at Brisbane. When he was at Melbourne Victory, which is my local team over here, he came in, let a lot of guys go, rebuilt the team. The following season after he left to go to Australia's national team, they won the comp playing his style of football. So I understand what everyone's saying, and I understand growing up a Celtic fan, I understand the Glasgow Goldfish Bowl. I understand. It's like whatever you think is normal. And I know a lot of Australian Celtic fans I talk to, like, they understand it. But then talking to my family members, my friends who don't understand what that's like, they're like, what are these fans on about? Trying to call for him to be sacked after 7 games or whatever. So, yeah, I expected it to be a bit rough because of the rebuild that was required. Didn't expect it to get as bad as it is because I'm going to put it down to more than anything, him coming in late because we sat around waiting on Eddie Howe for so long. And then on top of that, only having 3 months there to sort it out for now, also having all those injuries hasn't helped either. And I said on our podcast during the week that I think the key thing for us is we need to get a stable backline. That's my biggest opinion in the team at the moment. The constant chopping and changing isn't good for me. Like, I look at it and go, the thing like with Ange, once he gets that settled back line, then he'll build the front half of the field. But like, it's decent to see what's his name, Starfelt and Carter Vickers are starting to build a bit of a partnership, which is good. They made a few mistakes last night, led to a couple of goals, but that's improving. It's better than what we had a month ago. But yeah, it's not what I was expecting. But yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to fully understand. Tony, Jarrod raises a good point there, and I think we'll use that as our jumping off point to look at the game a little bit more closely, specifically last night. the back line is one that is starting to become settled, but when you consider the players that weren't playing last night, Juranovic, Scales, Julian still to come back, my fear is there's still quite a bit of chopping and changing to go, and Taylor coming back from injury as well. How likely do you think it is that this back four that we saw last night is going to be the settled option going forward for, as Jarrod says, building a foundation on, or do you think we're still likely to see this kind of mixing and matching going forward for a few weeks yet?
I think we'll see mixing and matching for a few weeks yet. Laura, this back four get beat 4-0 last night. I was part of a back four that lost 4-0 last night. So whilst you might see certain things gelling, as Jarrod says, that still lost, still made mistakes, at critical times. So they were nowhere near got a settled back four. And also as well, there just doesn't seem to be any kind of power of recovery once Celtic go a goal down. They don't have it in them to drag themselves back from any kind of setback. When I look at the back four, and I look at back fours that we've had in the past, these guys were leaders. They're led by example. What did Martin O'Neill do when he came in? And he just filled the back four with giants. Well, Carter Vickers and Starfelt are quite tall, they're not. I just don't see that. Maybe Carter Vickers is more of a unit than Starfelt, but they should be more imposing figures. I get last night we were up against a real quality side. I totally get that. But, even the manager admitted himself after it that we have to handle situations better. We have to do things better. You're trotting out the same excuses that we wait to get these players back and stuff. I keep maintaining you're playing the here and now. So you have to make do. And I think even Ange is getting kind of sick of that kind of thing, and sort of saying, look, guys, you have to manage game situations better. And it's just last night it just seemed bereft of belief. And it's a sad indictment that two of our better players were Kyogo and Callum McGregor. Two guys coming back from injury layoffs. And they led by example, but they can't keep doing it themselves. They need a hand. So the back of the pack wasn't assured. And I'm allowing for the fact we were up against a really, really good team. But so is that it? You're just going to roll over and die every time we play a really good team? Or roll over every time we concede goals? We don't have the gumption to get back into games. Whatever is happening at the minute, it's not good enough. And the style and the system of play is not good enough. ... Yet. Will it get better when all these players... There's no guarantee it's going to get better when we get players back. So people keep saying to me, it's going to get better. Is it? You're commenting, you're watching, you're seeing a team be bereft of character, identity, leaders, dig. All the kind of basics of, rudiments of a football team. We're lacking in them all. And that's why we've won twice in our last 8 games. Can't stress that enough. And you're talking, it's the start of October, and you're already talking about must-win games, Laura. There's something rotten in the state of Denmark, is there not? Something has to change.
Something does have to change. FNJC on Twitch says the only thing I didn't like from the centre-backs last night was the sideways passing, which Leverkusen took advantage of and pushed them deeper and deeper. The expected outballs of Ralston and Monty weren't there because they were crowded out in midfield more often than not. Jarrod, I don't know if you happen to see it on Twitter, but our fellow contributor Russell Boyce took a picture on the screen of Montgomery and Ralston in that inverted fullback position about 30 seconds before we conceded I think it was the first goal. It was pretty shocking to see it in black and white, if you like, or call it Technicolor, if you like, of just how extreme the positioning was. And they are obviously following the manager's orders. Taking apart F&JC's point that, I think the centre-backs did have a half-decent sort of a game, and your assessment earlier that they are building up a partnership. is it Ralston and Montgomery that were the main issue last night? Are they too inexperienced to be playing what Ange is asking them to play last night? Or was it naive to play that system against a team like Leverkusen anyway?
2 prongs on that. Firstly, centre backs are building a partnership. I never said it was a good partnership, but they're starting to get a run against together, which I just want to clarify that. Second thing, yeah, like what you said, Laura, with the with Montgomery and Ralston, that picture, as soon as I saw that from Russell, I'm like, oh God, what are they doing? It's supposed to be the way his teams play with the inverted. It's one goes in to plug that hole, and the other one stays back, so it's a 3-man back line. If we're playing 4 at the back, in that situation, we're going from like a 4-3-3 to a 2-5-2 or 2-5-3 or something like that with only 2 defenders. Like that's suicidal against a team like Leverkusen. That's ridiculous. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. So that's either, the 2 boys doing that aren't communicating properly. I'm going to go in, you hold back, or it's just not following instructions. They're both just doing their own thing. Yes, Ange can crack the whip at training, but we're playing that many games. How much time do we have on the training pitch to address that? That's not an excuse for him there, but what I'm saying is that's not good enough.
Yeah, it really isn't good enough. And I think Tony, Jarrod raises a good point there. The 3 of us sitting here understand the basics of an inverted fullback system, that idea that if one goes forward, the other one stays back and creates a back 3. And against a front 3 like Leverkusen had, that would have worked. My actual criticism last night was that we weren't playing a shape that the back 3, because I think a back 3 always works better against a front 3. Mm-hmm. So there is a question, kind of Jarrod touched on it. Is it their inexperience that's caused them to both be in that position when it should only have been one of them, or are they just not understanding the instructions that they've been given, do you think?
I think it's a bit of everything. It's also on the manager, let's be honest. You can talk about systems and all that, but if you don't have the personnel to fulfil that system, which you clearly don't, then why are you doing it? You have to adapt. We're playing a system where guys either don't understand it, are not comfortable playing it, don't like playing it, and then, as Jarrod said, are maybe just doing their own thing. Can't have that. You just cannot have that. But ultimately, the manager picks the team and picks the system. So it falls on him. And teams like Leverkusen will pick you off all day, right? And I'm not, this isn't bashing Ange, but you have to, these are football phrases for a reason, horses for courses. You have to pick a team that's going to go toe-to-toe with a team like Bayer Leverkusen. You're at home and you get scudded 4-0 because you made basic elementary errors in a system where guys clearly aren't comfortable playing it. It's fact, you're sitting watching it. You said yourself at the top of the programme that as much as you're invested in Ange, and you are invested in Ange, we all want to see him succeed. But we're watching a team playing a style of football that they're not comfortable with, and they can't carry it out because we don't have the personnel to carry it out. And that leads on to another argument about Ange being backed by the board, etc. And we get all that. But we now have to find a system that the players are comfortable with and that they can do till it's second nature. But according to the manager, he's just going to persevere. What, you're going to persevere not winning football matches? That's the situation we find ourselves in, Laura.
Listen, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I agree with everything you're saying. And I, again, as I say, even as a massive proponent of Ange and what he's trying to do, I'm finding it hard to defend him. The underwater cabbage salesman, which I just love that name, on YouTube, has said, shape, formation, blah, blah, nothing to do with that. 100% Ange tactics of inverted fullbacks again cost us, directly responsible for conceding a goal. And the thing is, I'm seeing a lot of comments from people coming up, and yes, we'd love to see what you've got to say about things, but it is frustrating because we're trying to pick apart a game. We're trying to analyse a game. We're trying to figure out where the team went wrong. How you can be very positive about a 4-0 defeat is kind of beyond me. And so I'm trying as much to be balanced as I can. But at the end of the day, if the result isn't great and there's reasons the result wasn't great, then I think we have to highlight that.
I'm moving the positivity to Jarrod this week. All right, Jarrod?
Yeah.
Positivity's on you, mate. On you go.
Well, I was going to, on that note, I was going to come to Jarrod. I think one of the positives we have from last night is that we created chances. We just happened to come up against a goalkeeper who was playing out his skin. Jarrod, we are creating chances, aren't we? That front line of Jota, Furuhashi and Abada looks like it could prove fruitful if it's given a chance.
Very, very fast, very direct, wasteful last night in front of goals. That's the way I summed the three of them up. They had enough opportunities there to score, and all three of them missed by, a ball width at certain points here and there. Like, there was one Abada, should have just put in, missed it. There was one Kyogo had off whether the keeper saved it or whatever, should have put it in. Like, realistically, it was 4-0. Their goalkeeper, amazing form. But at the other end of the field, Joe Hart did just as well. So I think the two keepers balanced each other out, because if this was us playing Barcelona or PSG a few years ago, that could have been a 6 or a 7 quite comfortably.
Yeah.
Joe Hart did his job just as well as their goalkeeper did. So I don't really want to put too much on their goalkeeper. Yes, he played well. I think it was more we were wasteful with the opportunities we got. And then you look at their last goal, they got half an opportunity. These guys had put a belter straight into the net. That's the difference between the two teams last night.
That's how you take a chance, Jarrod.
Exactly. No mucking around.
How you convert a chance. No messing. The last goal was a terrific strike.
Yeah. And I'm like, that's just class. Like, at the end of the day, like, even though it was against us, if I was at the stadium, I probably still would have clapped that goal, because that was just technical ability.
I did clap at Jarrod. I thought it was a brilliant strike. I just thought, wow, and just leaving a half chance, you know what I mean? Just fall at his feet, screamer. You just got to turn around and say, right, take your hat off to the fact that you're playing a good team. But how many times are you going to have to take your hat off to the fact you're playing a good team? That's what annoys you. You have similar opportunities in matches and you're not clinical. And I remember saying when Kyogo came in and he got a hat-trick against Dundee, and I said he could have had 6. And people slaughtered me for it, Jarrod. But I said it was about taking your time and being clinical and showing composure. And I thought, and I'm allowing for him coming back into the side, being ring rusty. But, I thought, you say, wasteful in front of goal last night. And that clinical element and composure element in the Celtic front line was lacking big time.
Yeah, so we're lacking in a few places. Mark Tallier on YouTube, and I see your comments on Twitter and on YouTube all the time. We really enjoy conversing with you. But you've just said, was the only reason we lost last night due to the Bayer Leverkusen goalkeeper having a great game? Have I just heard that? I think if you've been listening to what we've been saying, then you'll realise that's not what you've just heard. We had multiple problems at the back, which is why we lost. We had multiple problems in midfield, which is why we lost. We were wasteful in front of goal, along with a good goalkeeper performance. So no, there was not only one reason that we lost the game, and I don't think any of the 3 people sitting here on the screen said that. But we'll move on. Jarrod, I'll come to you first. We've got what is always a tricky tie against Aberdeen at Pittodrie this weekend. They aren't having a great time of it themselves, but that's no guarantee that we'll go up there and get a result. Is there any changes to last night's team? Anything that you expect to happen for the weekend's game that you think might improve our chances against Aberdeen?
It's probably two things I'd do. I'd be taking Monty out and probably giving Scales a run, because I want to see him in that position, and what better way to test him than throw him straight into the kitchen and see how he handles the fire. So get him in there and see how he goes. Other than that, can't have Rogic and Turnbull together in the midfield. It's just not working. They're two similar type of players. And And when you got guys like Bruni in the midfield, Lewis Ferguson, for them, they've got some hard guys in the middle, so we kind of need to match that a bit. So better get McCarthy in, at least him. And I'd also love to see Shaw come off the bench a bit later on. I want to see what he's like because I think our midfield's a bit too small.
Yeah. I made that exact point on the post-match coverage last night, actually, and I was frustrated with myself, Tony, because as you know, I'm reluctant to say we need more bite, we need more muscle, we need more this and that, because I find that a little bit of a slightly old-fashioned way to look at things, but I can't disagree with what Jarrod said there. I can't disagree with what you've said before. Rogic and Turnbull in particular are lightweight in that midfield and are going to come a cropper if it's the two of them against a Lewis Ferguson and a Scott Brown in the Aberdeen midfield.
You just look at it and you think, we've no steel there, have we? Might have some craft, but it might be a game for steel. You know, and Turnbull, we've defended Turnbull as a baller, but at this moment in time, Turnbull is suffering from a chronic lack of form. And I think Turnbull and Rogic are good in Celtic teams that are not roaring, free scoring, never boring, right? But when you're asking them to dig deep, and show leadership qualities, then that's when they're lacking. And sadly we're going up against two midfielders on Sunday in Scott Brown and Lewis Ferguson who are going to give you a chasing, and we'll chase everything down and we'll graft, and with no shortage of steel and no shortage of craft and guile. If it comes to it, they will mix everything. They will raise you every hand that you play. You're in a game on Sunday midfield wise, and I think that's a lot of where Celtic are losing the midfield. Great to get McGregor back last night. Can you imagine if Celtic didn't have McGregor and Kyogo last night? I dread to think what might have happened. And Jarrod made the point that Joe Hart saved Celtic from maybe losing 6. But, that's what goalkeepers are there to do. And the Bayer goalkeeper there to keep the ball at the net. So that's their job. Sadly, we're lacking guys in the midfield who can do a job at this minute in time. That's the state that Celtic are in this moment in time, where every week we're going into a game thinking we don't have a settled midfield. What's he going to do to change it? What's he going to do to jig it up? We're going to have to do something on Sunday. I agree with Jarrod. I'd like to see Shaw come in as well. But the midfield, is he going to put Beaton in the midfield? Something like that to kind of match up.
Well, just to jump in there, I think Beaton's an interesting one, and I'll come to you, Jarrod, on your thoughts for this. But my assessment of Beaton is, a lot of the criticism and negativity he has got over the years is because people don't think he's a very good centre-back and he keeps getting used as a centre-back. This use of him in the midfield, which is his original position, has reminded a lot of people of what is good about Beaton. His ability to put his foot on the ball, to pass the ball, to slow the play a bit down, and just calm things down in the midfield. Do you see a future for him, Jarrod, as an option in midfield? And now that we've got options at the back, he doesn't need to fill that role anymore?
He's a poor man's Patrick Vieira in the midfield, but I'd rather him there than put Sorrow there.
Yeah.
A very poor man's Patrick Vieira.
I'm just going off the height in their midfielders. Like, he'd do that job because we're a bit too, my favourite Scottish term, we're a bit too wee in the midfield. I had to say it. Like, keep more size there. But it's one of them where this game against Aberdeen would be perfect for a guy that I rate highly, but we've never given a chance to. This is where I would just love to see Luke O'Connell out there playing for us, but he went out to Queen's Park. So that's the sort of situation I would have loved to see him get thrown in there and see if he can kick lumps out of Bruni and Lewis for us.
That would have been an interesting one. And Luke O'Connell's got that touch of skill with a little bit of that bite that you're talking about, and it is an interesting one. It's one thing that always baffles me as a Celtic supporter. There's so many players that we have who never seem to quite make the cut. And obviously it's because the people at the club are seeing more than what we do. But, you are left wondering what it is about them that they're not cutting the mustard. Maybe Luke O'Connell just needs to cut his teeth a little bit more at that Queen's Park level before getting another chance at Celtic, but we'll never know. Thanks everybody for watching. We are now halfway through today's show, and that means it's time for me to tell you what you need to do. You need to subscribe to us because we are growing every day. We are providing content on a State of Mind YouTube channel that doesn't just involve Celtic or football. It involves music content, fashion content, lots of chat, lots of different shows in the pipeline as well. If you subscribe on YouTube, just click the little red button underneath the screen if you're watching on there. All that does is allow you to be notified when we go live or when we post a video. It costs you absolutely no money. And the word subscription sometimes does mislead people there, but it's just a notification system for you. You can obviously follow us on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere that you watch us. LinkedIn is another one. We love to hear from you and to build a community with you wherever you're watching. And don't forget as well, if you subscribe specifically on YouTube, you can be entered in monthly prize draws for various different things that we give away. We've given away a couple of different platinum disc displays from the Fratellis and from the Verve previously. I think this month's one is a signed print of a Bobby Lennox picture. So get yourself subscribed and get following us to be entered in that draw. And don't worry, if you are already subscribed, you will still be in that draw as well. Jarrod, I'm going to come to you. Just because we were having a bit of an interesting chat, I think there's before we came on air, I should say, there's a bit of an assumption sometimes that, you know, as an Australian, as a fellow sort of person from Melbourne that Ange is, that you'd have been delighted to see him get the chance and you know, to raise the profile of Australian football in Europe. But you were saying before that he wouldn't have been your first choice for Celtic manager. I'm interested to hear, you know, like, what direction you would have taken the club in, what your appointments would have been, or who you think might have been a good fit for the Celtic manager's job.
Yeah, I said it last time I was on, but I was more looking at guys like, what's his name again? I liked Marco Rose originally before last season, but going into this season, I wanted David Wagner. Mm-hmm. Like, he was the guy I wanted. Like, I really rate German football, and I'll see that's like where there's a lot of like quality coaches coming out of Germany, and he's the one that I've just rated highly for years. So he was the sort of guy there. But then anytime I bring him up, people go, oh yeah, but his win percentage is 30%. And Ange's win percent is 40%. That's not going to cut it in Glasgow. Yeah, but he was coaching Huddersfield Town. He was coaching Schalke when they started the season when they got relegated. He's not had a team with the resources at the top of the league like Celtic. So that's what I would have preferred. However, being an Australian and being from Melbourne, it's great to have Ange there, but I've been a Celtic fan longer than I've known who Ange Postecoglou is. So, and I was saying on our pod, I've copped some pelters over the last couple of weeks on Twitter where people are saying, oh, what would you know, Skippy, you Aussie, you're just supporting Ange, when I make a comment about the board, right? Well, at the end of the day, I'm a Celtic fan first, so yeah. I want what's best for the club. But, yeah, it's good to see Ange there. We're getting more coverage in the media, but it shows how limited our media is over here, that they've got no idea about Scottish football at all. Some of the stuff they write, I just shake my head and laugh and go, I'd rather read the Daily Record, and that's saying something. No. But that's what I'm saying.
No, but it's an interesting thing you say. I'm sure. You know, the Scottish knowledge of Australian football wouldn't be much better, but you know that's the nature of the world we live in. But Tony, when I hear Jarrod saying that and talking about different names he would have got in and different people's styles that he would have liked, and I'm sure I could name some and you could name some and anybody in the comments could name some as well. There's a part of me that thinks that the apparent lack of structure that we have to the way that things are done, the lack of structure in the scouting, the lack of structure in the coaching, the fact that we didn't have a science advisor that Ange was calling out for until very recently, and obviously the problems that we've got with the CEO having left, is it a case of that it doesn't matter who it is in Ange's position, it was never going to work? Or do you think there are people out there who could have had a better start to life at Celtic than Ange's had?
Pretty much, it's all hypothetical, really, isn't it? You know, Ange is there. He's the man. So if he is your man and you believe in this project or you believe in this process, then you have to arm him with the teeth and give him every chance to be successful. You know, you look at Ange and sometimes he just cuts a forlorn, lonely figure, doesn't he? I never see him in conversation with Kennedy or Strachan, you know. And I get back to it, and I wrote it the other day in the Celtic Way. If they were willing to back Eddie Howe to the hilt and let him bring in, you know, a cast of thousands, you know, backroom staff and all that, why haven't they done that with Ange? I've got every sympathy for him in that sense. You know, he's not been able to bring in a right-hand man. Celtic don't have what traditionally you would call a number two or an assistant. Try to tell me Ange doesn't have a right-hand man, somebody that he trusts, a lieutenant to bounce ideas off. You know, so he is kind of hamstrung a big bit, and with, you know, working maybe with his hands tied behind his back. But then that's on the board, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's on to turn around and say, right, Ange, what do you need? You know, has he said himself sometimes, well, we said during the transfer window, maybe he wasn't forceful enough. Did he ask for the sports scientist, or was this foisted upon him? Was this something that he wanted? Because I think right now he should be asking for everything.
I can actually answer that, Tony, if you want to know the sports scientist stuff.
Yeah, well, Jarrod, I was going to ask you, like, we're sitting here thinking, surely Ange must have people that he's worked with before, are there people at the other clubs that he's worked with before that you would have thought he would have brought over, or is this how he approaches every role that he's had?
Historically, he goes into a club and sees that the lay of land is the first year, so keeps the coaches there, and then tends to sack everyone at the end of that season and bring in his guys for the second season. That's what tends to happen. But what you're saying about the sports science, we lost that Jack Naylor to RB Leipzig, and then we didn't have a head of sports science and physio running that whole department for how many months? Now, Ange coming from Australia, we've got a lot of cutting-edge sports science because of our AFL, because of our NRL, because of our swimming and all our like Olympic level sports and that sort of stuff over here. And just coming from a club like Melbourne Victory that's got 4 sports scientists on the books and 6 physios to coming in there, we doesn't even have one sports science person like running the show there. Like that's night and day. So that's a bit of an issue for him. So I'm glad this is finally there.
That's what I mean, Jarrod. So if anyone knows about this kind of stuff, it's Ange, isn't it? And he could recommend 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people to come in, surely, right? So
yeah, exactly.
why hasn't he, when the Celtic board were ready to say to Eddie Howe, bring in who you want, why hasn't Ange been afforded the same privilege? You know, which I don't think.
Tony, I agree with you 100%.
Right.
I've been
Yeah. So you're singing from the same hymn sheet there. So that's something that should be afforded to the manager. You know, from the kickoff.
I guess to get your answer to that question, Tony, is are you saying from posing that question that your suspicion is that Eddie Howe was definitely being offered things that Ange is not, and that's been a deliberate decision?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, of course, that's what I'm alluding to.
Even Enzo Maresca and coming in with the package deal of him coming from Man City, along with, was it Fergal Harkin as a package deal? That was offering more stuff than Ange has been offered.
You know, which leads me to believe that the board are hedging their bets with Ange, which is unfair on him as well. You know, they're running with it to see if it works, type thing. You know, flying by the seat. I think we've got no forward planning. And I do have every sympathy for Ange in those situations. You know, but I don't think he's helping himself in the sense that, see if you're winning games, nobody really bothers with us. Right? It's something in the background and you deal with it. But see if you're successful and you're winning football matches, it's kind of like, right, you know, you're the man. And that's why he's now been put under a microscope when results are, you know, are coming under scrutiny, which is fair enough. But I'll reiterate again, nobody wants Ange to succeed more than us. We're Celtic supporters. You know, why would you want a Celtic manager to fail? It's preposterous. Absolutely preposterous. Am I sceptical? Yeah. Am I worried about the future and the process? Of course I am. But, I genuinely want Ange to... I want to come on this programme and go, woof, called it wrong. And I'll be the first to do that. I will be the first going to say, right, I got it wrong. And nobody would be more delighted to do that and say, the early signs weren't great, but he's switched it around and he's turned my mind around. The way he's turning your mind around now, Laura, you're not quite so sure. So that's fine, but that's just my opinion. It differs from many Celtic supporters. Nobody's right or nobody's wrong because, he's not been in the job that long. But am I worried? Am I concerned? Of course I am. I'm like every Celtic supporter. I like winning football matches. You know what I mean? And we're not doing that at the minute.
Well, Paul's just come in with the comment, and just to clarify on the points that we're raising, we often are speculating on the show as we are entitled to do as Celtic supporters, but he's just confirming there that the club did confirm directly to fan media when the deal collapsed that Eddie Howe was offered the opportunity to bring in his own staff, including a director of football. So that's absolutely like cast iron guaranteed that, he has... Other managerial candidates have been offered things that Ange, while he might not have wanted everything that Eddie Howe wanted, he was certainly calling out for certain staff members, like a sports scientist who wasn't appointed for a number of weeks after he made that comment in the press, and may not have been appointed had Ange not made that comment in the press. So it does leave you wondering. But to move away from Ange specifically for a bit and the wider issues at the club, I was sitting watching last night, Jarrod, thinking particularly about two players who, when they are fully fit, are key for us in the team. One is Christopher Jullien, who we believe may be able to return later this month. Who knows what kind of a player he'll be compared to what he was before, because it's a pretty significant injury he's coming back from. And the other is James Forrest, who's struggled with a long-term injury and has had a couple of niggles. We'll come to James Forrest first, Jarrod. Do you see him having a position or a place in the team ahead of anybody who's there, or can he fit into the system ahead of somebody else? I just think of, when I think of Jota and I think of Abada, they are reasonably strong options. Can you see Forrest taking a shirt off them, or will we have to find a different way to fit him into the team?
I think it's going to be interesting because I've been saying about Jamesy for years that I could see him long-term becoming a centre forward in the same way Kyogo is for us. The way he makes his runs in behind, playing on the shoulder, he could play in that role if need be. However, I actually love the fact that we're going to have Abada and Forrest out on that right wing going at each other every day in training, challenging, so the better player gets that jersey. It's going to take it back to the invincible treble season under Rodgers, where we had Roberts and Forrest going at each other in training, and that was probably when we were at our strongest in that position on the right wing. So I'm hoping he comes in, he gets fit, he comes in, and then it's just a battle every day in training because we're playing so many games. We're going to need rotation, and I doubt Abada's going to be able to play 50-something games a season at this point, considering he's 19, 20 years old, first season at the club. He's not going to be used to it. So, yeah, it'll be good to get Jamesy back in that position.
Yeah, I think I am one of the people, and I know there are a lot of other people who maybe underestimated Forrest's contributions to the team until he was out of the team and then realised how much we missed him. Tony, is he in any way a cert to come back in when he's fully fit, or is it a case of him having to earn that shirt back, do you think?
Well, I think Jarrod said there, you watch these two guys go in training and you give to the victor the spoils kind of thing, but James Forrest is the most decorated Celtic player at the club, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's for itself, and you never know what you've got till you've lost it. Celtic have badly missed James Forrest. A lot of people out there might not want to admit that, because he's never been... For someone who's been so successful at the club, he's never your first favourite pick, is he? But you cannot underestimate James Forrest's contribution to the Celtic cause, and that's why he's won so many medals. He's just used. He set such a high bar as a Celtic player. It's a massive bar, So I don't have a bad word to say about James Forrest, and I just hope he comes back and he's the James Forrest of old. Because there's nothing better than seeing him tear down the right wing and dink those crosses in for somebody just to put their head on it or tuck it away. And I agree with Jarrod in the sense that whilst Abada has had a cracking start to his Celtic career, he has blown hot and cold in matches, but he is only 19, so you have to legislate and allow for that. A young guy not used to maybe playing so many games a season, so that's fine. But I think if you've got a healthy and a fit James Forrest, you've got a wonderful asset on your hands at the club, and hopefully, like Julian, when they come back, that they're 100% and they're not. No one's gambling with their fitness and the time frame and all that. You just want to see these two guys get back to something resembling the form that they showed before they were out long term.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and that brings us nicely on to Julian. Tony, I'll come back to you first on him. Assuming we have caveated everything that we've talked about with him, that there are concerns with the injury that he's had, that he might not be the same player. Let's assume that he comes back and is the Julian that we knew before. A couple of questions that I have in my mind is it a case of the absence makes the heart go fonder with him? Do we think of him as a better defender than he actually was? Or is he that good? And if so, does he get back into the team ahead of a Starfelt or a Cameron Carter-Vickers?
I think his presence would be pretty reassuring. He's a big, tall guy, and he causes, he can do damage in both boxes. He can get his head onto stuff, and he scored a few important goals. And as you say, some players take on some kind of mystical reverence when they're absent, And I think Julian had his deficiencies. He had his faults and his weaknesses, but he had a lot of strengths too. And you felt safer at the back of the pack. And if you're asking me if Julian is coming back at some point this month, then you would think he would come in for Starfelt, wouldn't you? I still think that Starfelt looks really, really cumbersome with the ball at his feet. He's no comfortable with playing that passing game, and probably his instincts is to shell it long, but he doesn't do it because it goes against the manager's advice and what he's been taught. But I think Starfelt looked as if he was coming on to a game, but he's regressed again the past couple of games. There's something no functioning with Starfelt, and it's not happening at the minute, and those deficiencies in his game are being cruelly exposed. So if Julian's coming back at some point this month, hopefully he does, then I would say I would like to see him play alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers, because they then would look and give you some kind of imposing figures and towering presence at the back. They're two big units, so that for me, proof's in the pudding. We'll need to see the two of them play together, but I would feel a bit safer. Right now you see the Celtic defence and you think we could concede at any time here, whether it be from set plays or just being cut open, guys switching off, stuff like that. The back four it's a catalogue of mistakes that we've conceded goals from this season, isn't it? You can trace them all, and you just don't have a settled back four at the minute. And whether Julian will contribute to us having a more settled back four, it remains to be seen. But assuming, as you say, that he's fit and healthy, then hopefully, then that adds a bit of reassurance, and we can start to build and move forward and get the kind of style of play that he wants to play out from the back with these players in the team.
Yeah, I think that's a real consideration and something that we have to look at going forward when he does come back. Jarrod, your thoughts on Julian? It's obviously nearly a year since we've seen him in a Celtic shirt. How much did you value his contributions before he was injured? And do you think, assuming obviously, like we've said, that he gets back to the player that he was, where's his place in the team?
I'm thinking... I actually thought he was one that was either going to be him or Kelmack for captain once Bruni said he was moving on. That's how highly I rate the guy in terms of his leadership. But at the same time, I think his passing ability will suit Ange's game, but he's not a left-sided centre-back, and that's the problem we've got. No matter what we have in our back line, you've got Starfelt, who's a right-sided centre-back. You've got Carter-Vickers, who's right-sided. You've got Welsh, who can play left, but he's predominantly right. And then you've got Julian. So you've got four guys for one position. So you have to play someone out of their spot there. So I think he'll do the job and he'll fit in well. But at the end of the day, it's going to take him a little while to get up to speed because he hasn't played in 12 months. But doesn't mean he gets any shorter in the 80th minute of a game or the 90th minute of a game, though. So that's always a good thing when you got like a 6'5", 6'6" centre back out there, and then you've got a beefcake like Carter Vickers next to him. No one will push those two around.
No, I don't think they will. I certainly wouldn't want to have a square goal with them, as we would say in Scotland. Not that I physically could. I think I'd be having a square goal with their knee, Tony. But that's about it. Yeah, thanks everybody for keeping watching. We're
well, my money would still be on you in a square goal with A2.
Aye, well, you never know. I come in a small package, but I'm feisty, you know. But no, thanks everybody for watching. We're now over 15,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is absolutely fantastic. We could fill a wee corner of the stadium, maybe a Green Brigade section all to ourselves, the ACSOM cult, as we like to call it. And as Paul mentioned on the show the other day, we are hoping to have some of you viewers and subscribers on the show in the coming weeks to chat with us all things Celtic, and to really tell us where we've been going wrong all these months, or agree with us if you think we've been talking sense. You don't mind telling us in the comments, obviously, and we would love to hear you in person. Let us know your thoughts. So look out for that in the coming weeks. Tony, I'll come back to you just to finish out the show. Talked about a pair of players who aren't in the team, who are long-term injuries yet to come back. We had two players come back, as we mentioned. They were the best players on the pitch for us, despite the fact they're just back from injury. We'll start with Callum McGregor. What is it about him that we missed when he wasn't there? What is it about him that he provided last night that was so good in comparison to the games previous?
Provided a bit of leadership, didn't he? He didn't go hiding. You know, he was always there to take the ball, at least start to get us up the park. You know, and he really has grown into the captain's role, and we badly missed him. You know, and I felt sorry for him last night because, you know, it just wasn't happening for Roderick and Turnbull at all. You know, and Callum I probably got frustrated, and I think he said at the end of the game when he got interviewed after that it wasn't good enough and it was unacceptable. But his own performance was acceptable. He needs more people to step up to the plate like he did. You know, and Kyogo, you know, see if you're a jetty, you should hang your head in shame. Kyogo came on and played that game last night as if his life depended on it. You saw his reaction when he got taken off. He was crestfallen that he hadn't scored. You know, and I don't know if the camera panned onto it, but he walked round and a child came running down and he was so disconsolate, but he saw at the corner of his eye the child wanted to shake his hand, and he went over and he shook his hand. And I thought, that's a guy who, you know, just gets it. He just, you know, destroyed that he didn't score and help the team cause, but gave his all for it. And that's a guy that probably wasn't fully fit. And the manager maybe took a gamble on his fitness and said to him, look, can you do us a turn? And he said, yeah, you know, and, you know, you just look at those two players. They just gave everybody a lift last night. But sadly, they can't do it alone. They need help. You know, they're the two best players in the team without a shadow of a doubt. And, you know, and Kyogo's pivotal to the way Ange wants to play. And earlier, I was talking about the chances that he missed, and I wasn't having a go at him. I get that he's ring rusty, but you saw his own reaction. He was having a go at himself. He was beating himself up at the fact he hadn't scored. You know, so if you set your standards and your bar that high, then that's great for the club moving forward. And as I say, we've badly missed the two of them, and I dread to think what would have happened last night if the two of them weren't in the team, and that's talking after a 4-0 defeat. So there you go. That says it all, really.
Yeah, I think if you didn't have those two and Joe Hart, my goodness, I think it would have been a major issue. Jarrod, Tony raises a really great point about Callum McGregor. I think if you'd asked any Celtic supporter this time last season whether they wanted Callum McGregor as the next captain, the majority of them, while not saying no outright, might have said that they didn't think he had the character for it. He's certainly grown into the role, hasn't he, and showed that leadership that Tony mentioned, that attitude that we want from a captain that has sometimes been sorely lacking at Celtic.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Like, I think sometimes it's addition by subtraction on that sort of front with leadership, because when you got such a dominant personality who's been the captain for so long in Bruni at the club, even when if Bruni's out injured and Callum's captain, Bruni's still kicking around in the background talking to guys and all that. But once he's out the door, you could see like Kyogo saying that, Callum gave him a call, and staff felt Callum gave him a call when they were in hotel quarantine. Like, that's a good first touch. So now he's actually able to establish himself and be the leader and be the main man in his own way. And it's going to be different to how Bruni did it. But at the same time, looking back, Paul McStay was a different sort of captain to Bruni, and Danny McGrain. So they're different type to Bruni. So you don't always have to have a big, like a hyped up sort of person or someone that's going to lead by example. They're the sort in terms of screaming, a yeller and screamer like Aya. He would have been, if you wanted the exact same type as Bruni, you keep Aya and give him the band. Not all captains lead that way. So, yeah, I look at it and go, he's a different sort of guy. I was probably in that boat where you're saying I was iffy on if he should have been the captain. And that's why I said earlier that it either would have been him or Julian for me. But I'm glad he's got the captain's armband, and, yeah, have a look what he's doing. Well done. It's good to see the growth.
I think every Celtic supporter's glad he's got it now as well, to be fair, because they see what he brings. Yeah.
I think that's entirely true. And Tony, I just wanted to expand on something you said about Kyogo. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get that at the end of the day, all that matters for a striker at Celtic is that they score goals. I get all that matters at Celtic for a goalkeeper is that they keep clean sheets, or we could go through the whole team and list positions and players that you talk about that way with. But Joe Hart and Kyogo Furuhashi, I think, have provided something that I want to see from Celtic players that I have certainly not seen enough of. That is a desire to play for the club, but more importantly, an obvious appreciation for the position that they are in, and an obvious appreciation of the love that the fans have for the club and the privileged position that they have to be playing for the club. Joe Hart and Kyogo Furuhashi, I saw a thing on Twitter that Joe Hart spent more time outside the stadium than any other player in the squad, signing things, taking pictures with people. Furuhashi, I've seen multiple pictures of them. Poor guy just trying to do his shopping in Costco and wherever else he's going, IKEA, trying to get furniture for his flat, and he's stopping for every single picture going. Now, I'm not saying that these players have to do that. They're human beings, they're individuals, they should be at liberty to do what they want. But I love to see people who know what it means to be a Celtic player and know what it will mean to a wee boy or a wee girl for them to take that 2 minutes out of their day to give that child or that person a memory that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, which is why I highlighted that when Kyogo was walking on the park last night with the kid. I mean, that kid's years been made. You know, Kyogo shook my hand. You know, probably like, I'll never wash this hand again. That kind of stuff. You know, because that's the affinity that they have with the footballers, and you know, certain players grasp it. You know, Tommy Burns said you're a Celtic player on and off the park. You know, Hart grasped it. Kyogo's grasped it. Larson grasped it. You know, it's a phrase I use a lot. They just get it, don't they? From the get-go, they get what it means to play for a club that has so many supporters worldwide that just worship the ground that they walk on. And, you know, they're handsomely rewarded. So guys like that, they get it into their mindset. It's nothing to sign autographs, spend time with, you know, the fans who adore them. And they do adore them, you know, they put them up there. And see when you get that into your mind that it costs you nothing. You know, you enjoy it and you embrace it, because it's I've said before, it's a wonderful football club, and it tugs at your heart. And when you leave, you will feel it most when you leave. See, when you're there, if you just put it around you and wrap it around you like your favourite jacket and your cloak, people will love you for that and be the embodiment and spirit of what as a Celtic player should be. You know, and you know, you had reservations about Hart, and he's quickly put them to bed, hasn't he? You know,
yeah. And I have to say as well, Tony, just before you go on, that's an important part of being a football supporter. That's an important part of being a Celtic supporter, being a human being, of saying, I got that wrong. I misjudged the guy.
Yeah.
He has provided everything I would want, not only in a goalkeeper, but in a representative of the football club. And I never thought I would say that about Joe Hart.
I'll say this, Lord, there's 3 players to my mind right now that are the beating heart of Celtic. It's Hart, Kyogo and McGregor.
Yeah.
Who, funnily enough, were our best players last night. They're the beating heart of that football club. You know, that's who the supporters migrate towards, who they look forward to seeing. You know, it's no surprise, is it? You know, when you consider where Joe Hart's been and, you know, what he did in his career, you know, I tip my hat to Joe Hart for coming in and embracing it. And Kyogo, you know, how can you not smile when you see posting videos? He just seems to be perpetually happy and in a state of bliss. You know, that he's got this chance, and with a wonderful football club, you know, who've just embraced him. You know, long may it continue. And we missed him in the short time he's been here. We missed him when he was out the side. That tells you a lot about the impact that somebody like Kyogo has made in the short space of time he's here. And I'll give kudos to the manager, because that's the manager's signing.
Yes,
and I said it before, and I'll say it again. The board should have gone to the manager before the window shut and said, any more of them, Ange? And Ange would have went, yep. You know, like the Magna Carta, he'd have pulled out something and said, yep, there's our list. Go and get him, and him. See, if they do that, then you might find out that the manager's worth his salt, you know, and if you arm him with the players to play the system he wants, funny that it might work, you know.
We keep talking about that, Tony, on our pod, where it's like we're saying the Japanese season ends end of November, then they've got the Cup in December, and then transfer window opens in January. If Ange has a list, he should be lining them up, and in November, end of November, we should be getting guys all deals done in December so they're ready to go.
Exactly.
January 1st, into the country.
And if you trust the manager, Jarrod, that's what you should be doing right now.
Exactly.
I would trust the manager's judgment on players based on Kyogo alone. Right?
Yeah.
You would say to him, there must, and he knows that part of the world, he knows the football, he knows the leagues. So you try to tell me that he couldn't bring in, because Celtic are about 5 players short at this moment in time, easy. You try to tell me you couldn't identify 5 players.
Yeah, and let's not forget, Tony, Furuhashi is not a player that he managed. He's a player he identified in the league that he was playing in.
Correct. You know, so I would trust him implicitly on that. But over to the board to say to Ange, okay, we trust you. You are our man. You're going to get everything that you want. Tell us what you want. He gives them a shopping list. Go and get them, and we'll see what happens. But all that has to come down to trust of the manager.
100% it does. I still trust Ange. It's a rocky road at the moment. We will see where it goes. I hope he gets the chance to do as Jarrod says and line up those signings for January, because I think we could see a much better second half to the season if he's given that opportunity. It's a long time to go until then, and we've got a lot of fixtures to play, so we'll see what happens. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching, commenting, wherever you are watching today. We really appreciate it. Thank you to Jarrod for extending his conscious time in the day and withholding resisting the temptation to go to bed, I should say, because I think I would have been more tempted to snuggle up after being up at 4:45 in the morning for a Celtic match. But there you go, especially when we lost 4-0. Thank you, Jarrod, for joining us up from the other side of the world. Thank you, Tony, for joining me from just down the road. And thank you to everybody. This has been a Celtic State of Mind, and we will see you on Sunday for the match coverage.